Hey everybody, it is Professor Parish and we are on Module 4, if you can believe it, of English 109. We are already to a fourth of the way through the class. Isn't that crazy that we're on a month in? So this month has flown by, but this is our first week where we have 3 assignments. So we have a lot to do this week. I want to go ahead and talk to you all about it and explain what the assignments are and kind of go over chapters 5 and 6 in our textbook and explore those. So let's not waste any more time, shall we? We're going to open up this Module 4 guide here and talk about, I did do a few corrections this week, so if you're somebody that's worked ahead, you may want to watch this video and go back and recheck everything, because I rechecked our page numbers. I did change up the textbook assignment, make it up to date, so everything should be up to date for this assignment, right? So what the readings are for this next week is to read the chapter on cause and effect, which is chapter 11, and is on page 245 to 258 in our textbook. We're going to skip around starting from this point to different chapters because they talk about different things. So just be aware that that will be the assignment for next week, and we'll talk about chapter 11 then and do the whole chapter about cause and effect then. But basically, let's go ahead and talk about chapter 5 and 6 while we're here. So I'll go over the guidelines and things like that and the assignments, but while I'm here, chapter 5 and 6 are talking about the 4th steps in writing. And so talking about writing clear sentences. So as you went through chapter 5, you probably looked and saw the different exercises and tips that they gave about making your writing concise. And what I mean by concise, because I have commented on some of your grades for the class, and I may say that you are specific and concise, which means you say exactly what you need to say in the moment. You say the exact words that you need to, and you're not excessive. You're not just putting fluff into your answers. Conciseness means that you're being specific and exact. You're saying what needs to be said. And so this chapter kind of talks about making your writing to where you're doing that. You're not just adding fluff words or unnecessary words or phrases. You're being as concise as possible while also being specific and detailed. And so chapter 5 goes over several different examples. On page 130, they go over concise wording, things like that. They tell how to vary your sentences, and they give examples of that in the textbook. And we'll talk about your textbook assignment for this week, but it will kind of go over supporting details and sentences. And then on page 141, it talks about revising. Now, I had Miss Hill. Miss Hill is my English teacher at Glacier High School. She was my English teacher, and she was all about, on page 140, we had to learn how to use these proofing symbols. They're a little outdated now because you guys are going to be proofreading stuff probably on the computer or on Microsoft Word. But back in the day, Miss Hill had us always proofread our papers in class on paper with paper drafts. And on page 40, it shows you like those little symbols. And I don't know if your English instructor in high school has ever had you use those symbols, but I even still use them now. If I write out something and I edit it, I'll use those symbols as well. Like the little omit thing, which is like the little loop. I use that all the time. And it's something that I learned all the time in grade school and high school. And there's like little symbols there that you can kind of see. Like I said, they're a little antiquated because we do a lot of our proofreading and revising online through a word processor. So you don't really edit on paper anymore, but I do think those examples are really nice there to see. If I had you as a face-to-face student and I handed you back your paper, I would probably include those symbols on there. But that's just a little fun thing. And then as we go back through the rest of chapter 5, it's just giving us lots of different exercises. So chapter 5 was actually not very much reading. Most of it was exercises. And then chapter 6 talks about revision. Now, you guys will get a chance to revise 3 out of your 4 papers. The last paper is due during finals week, so you won't get a chance to revise it, but we will do a revision process leading up to it, and I'll talk about that when we get to it way down the road. But this chapter here just talks about coherence and support. So supporting your thesis statements, being coherent, making sense, making sure your sentences are complete. Some of you may have noticed in your discussion forum last week that I am starting to take off more points. Like the very first discussion forum we had, I went pretty easy. Everybody got a free pass pretty much. But from here on in, I'm going to be looking at your answers in the discussion forum, in your posts, in your responses, making sure they are complete sentences. They have proper capitalization, proper spelling. It is an English class, so we have to take that into account. And making sure that you are being coherent and that your sentences are detailed enough to count for the full grade. So if you had points taken off of this last discussion forum, it's probably because there were either 1, spelling errors, 2, mechanical errors, or 3, there weren't enough coherent details. So make sure that you're getting those 3 things in your paper, as well as your discussion forum and responses. And so then it talks about on page 164 the idea of 4 bases, like covering your bases, like making sure you have support, coherence, unity, as well as sentence skills. Those are the main things. You have to have unity. Your paper all has to connect together, has to be coherent and make sense, has to have supporting details or research, and it also has to have proper sentence skills like grammar and punctuation and mechanics. If you have those 4 bases covered, then you're pretty good to go, right? And so the rest of chapter 6 talks about different examples and uses ways that can kind of allow you to look at paragraphs and see, okay, what is supporting details in this paragraph? What's the topic sentence? What can I omit? Things like that. And they give, like on page 174, they give you a paragraph and then they kind of explain what the whole point is of the paragraph too. So it gives you lots of examples. All right. And that's pretty much covering the rest of chapter 6. It's all mostly examples at this point, right? And then our textbook starts part 2. So I'm going to go ahead and book an earmark. I am an earmarker in a book. A lot of people are like, oh, no. But I am going to earmark chapter 11 for next week that will talk about cause and effect, because that will be your first paper. We'll talk about it in more detail then. But I'm going to go ahead and bookmark that. All right. So as far as the assignments for this week, you have 3 assignments. The first assignment I'm going to pull up is our discussion forum. And our discussion forum is introducing cause and effect. And so talking about the readings of a generation. So required readings, like what readings do you guys have to read in high school? When I was in high school, we had to read Hamlet or Macbeth. We read To Kill a Mockingbird. And then we... the teacher of my junior and senior year, she was really big into medieval literature, so we did a lot of medieval literature like Beowulf. We did Legend of King Arthur, things like that. But I know that my brother, when he was in high school, he had to read Z for Zachariah. I never had to read that in high school, so I don't know that book as well, but Zach had to read it. My brother did. And so in this video, Lindsay Ellis, she is a scholar. She does a lot of video essays. I like to use her a lot. I think her humor is pretty good. But she does a series for PBS here where she talks about the required readings of a generation. And she has a specific name for them. And so I want you in question 1, what is that required reading called? She gives it a specific name, and I want you to let me know what it is. And number 2, at the conclusion of the video, what is the cause of this required reading throughout the years, and what is the effect of it? So why are these readings required and what's the effect of them? And she talks about that in the video. And then the third question's pretty open for y'all. Does your high school have a required reading in your English classes? What books have you read in high school? Which was your favorite? Why? So To Kill a Mockingbird was always one of my favorites, and I really liked Hamlet, so I liked them for various reasons. To Kill a Mockingbird, the characters and the story and thematic elements were always my favorite, it all tying back to reality and in the present time. And then Hamlet is just, it's a revenge tragedy, and sometimes you just want to read a revenge tragedy, right? And plus, the ending of it always got me with Hamlet. I always loved the ending of it. And Hamlet's one of those plays that has been adapted through modern time. My parents were big fans of the TV series Sons of Anarchy. And when it was going on, I remember I sat down and watched a few episodes with them, and all I could say was, "Oh, this is Hamlet." My parents were like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna end like Hamlet does." And they got really mad at me because it ended up happening that way, and they're like, "Stop!" It's like it's just how it is. You know, a lot of people take influence from Shakespeare and his works and adapt it into modern times. The Lion King is also an adaptation of Hamlet too. So if you've not watched Sons of Anarchy, just know that the ending of The Lion King is kind of the same. Only The Lion King ends on a much more positive note than Sons of Anarchy or Hamlet. So that's our discussion forum. Your discussion posts and 2 responses are due by Sunday, as always. Y'all have done a really good job, though, of doing these throughout the week, which is really nice. So that way it gives people the chance to respond during the week and not have to wait till Sunday. So I appreciate that. Thank you guys for working ahead on that. That's awesome. The second assignment is one that I've changed. So if you got on here last week, then this will look different. But I went back and double checked our textbook. There's 2 different versions. I know some of you may use a Mac computer. If you use a Mac, I have a Pages version here. If you use a PC, I have a Word doc version. But all right. So you do have to have read chapter 2 before doing this assignment, but that was several weeks ago. So you guys have obviously read it since then. But this assignment takes place on pages 87 through 91 in our textbook, and I'll just open up the Word doc version and show you. So in this assignment, there's 2 main things. Each question will be worth multiple points, But in part 1, on page 87 to page 90 in our textbook, you're going to look at activity 14 and 15. So they give you a topic sentence, and for each topic sentence, there's 2 paragraphs. And I want you to tell me if that paragraph that corresponds to this topic sentence, is it a specific detail or a general detail? Specific means it relates completely to the topic and is very specific and addresses one particular point. General just means it's just general information. It's not really touching on anything in particular. It's just general info that relates to the topic. And our textbook on those pages, 87 through 90, kind of talks about the difference between specific and general details. So you've got a few of those. And then on activity 15, which is on page, I think, 89, you have a set of paragraphs. I want you to tell me S for specific, G for general, right? That's part 1. It's pretty easy. Part 2 is on page 91 of our textbook. And this one, everybody's going to have different answers for this one. So your answers will probably be different than anybody else's in your class. But what I want you to do is examine the topic sentence and below write 3 supporting details. So for example, number 1 says, I could tell I was coming down with the flu. Well, tell me 3 reasons you knew you were coming down with the flu, right? 3 supporting details. These topic sentences are pretty basic and broad because I want to give you lots of chances to add specific details. So there are several ways college students can save money. What are 3 of them? You tell me that. I had car problems recently. What were those 3 car problems? Those of you that are like in the diesel class after school or taking diesel or mechanic classes, you can probably come up with some really specific ones here. Starting a new job can be difficult. What are 3 reasons why? And some people have dangerous driving habits. What are 3 dangerous driving habits? And I'm sure you guys can get creative with those as well. So you can get creative with your answers here as long as they're specific and they relate to the topic and they're appropriate. I'm fine. I have a pretty good sense of humor. So I've had students in the past do this assignment and get kind of creative with it, and that makes it fun. So that is the textbook assignment for this week. It is due Sunday as well. All right. So you have your discussion forum. We have our textbook activity. The last thing I want to talk about is your writing prep. And you'll notice here I have under resources how to create a useful outline. This will be the first chance that we use, this will be the first assignment we use an outline for. So I'm going to come back to this. All right. So just keep this in mind. But let's go to the writing prep assignment. So this is based off of chapter 11 in our textbook, which we'll talk about next week. The writing prep is where you tell me what your topic is, what the purpose of your paper is, and give me an outline showing the points that you plan to discuss. So I'll go ahead and click the guidelines right here for this. All right, let me scroll down here. All right. So, show y'all. So the guidelines basically are after reading, and this should be chapter 11, not chapter 10. Sorry about that. After you read the cause and effect chapter in our textbook, you're going to watch this video, obviously, and then your writing assignment has to do the following. So your paper as a whole, not this writing prep, but your paper as a whole needs to have an intro and conclusion and points that talk about your topic. And it has to have multiple body paragraphs and a conclusion, right? Your paper on cause and effect as a whole has to be 3 full pages double spaced. Not 2 pages and 1 line on the 3rd page. No, 3 full pages. If it's not 3 full pages, I'm going to count off. All right, so make sure you have 3 full pages. It can be more than that. It can be 4 or 5 pages. It has to be 3 full, double spaced, 12-point font. Let me phrase that, 12-point font. If you're watching this video as you're supposed to be because it's assigned to you, you'll know that the paper should be 12-point font. All right? And it has to be about cause and effect. So how the paper is graded is you have 10 points for your intro and conclusion, 20 points for your body paragraphs, 15 for spelling and grammar, 5 points for your page length and formatting, and it's 50 points total. For the writing prep, which is the assignment for this week, you'll be asked to create an outline. So what you're going to do is something basically like this that I've highlighted here. You're going to tell me your introduction, so tell me what your thesis or your point of your paper is going to be. What is the cause and effect? The points that you're going to talk about, you're going to list out here. So for example, you could do something like the cause and effect of going to college after high school. Like what are the causes of, or you can our book on page 11 or chapter 11. I don't want to talk about it yet because we're going to talk about it next week. But chapter 11, if you read that chapter, it goes over different examples of cause and effect topics, right? And it tells you how to develop cause and effect papers, your initial paragraphs, things like that. So you could say the cause and effect of one example they give in our textbook is why I stopped smoking. So the causes of being like, okay, well, the cause is why did I stop smoking? What exactly were the reasons why? And then your effects are, okay, what happened because I did that, right? That's a cause and effect topic, all right? And it kind of shows you like the outline. The outline on page 249 is kind of what I'm looking for. So you can see like they have on here why I stopped smoking. And they have basically 4 points there. So they have points underlined on page 249. They have it annoyed others, it was messy, it was bad for my health, and it was expensive. So that would be, if I was doing an outline here, I would say my topic is going to be why I stopped smoking, and the points I'm going to be talking about, I would say are they annoyed others, it was messy, it was bad for my health, and I'd add an extra point afterwards that said it was expensive, right? And where it says subpoint, you can look on page 249, and it says under expensive, a carton a week costs more than $3,000 a year. So I could put that down as my subpoint, right? Now, obviously, your conclusion is probably going to be the most work in progress at this point because you've not even started your paper. So if you want to, under conclusion, just put work in progress. But I want your writing prep to look like this outline. And under the introduction, you could say, I'm writing my paper about this topic. And then you have your thesis and then your points. The idea is I want a basic, just bare bones skeletal structure. My goal is, you know how some people write papers at like 2 a.m. the night before it's due? I don't want you to do that. Because usually if you write a paper the night before it's due, you're in a panic, you're in a rush, you're not really thinking it through, and you're not giving it the right attention that it needs, and it's not going to be a well-crafted paper. It's going to be rushed. And I want you to take your time and do this ahead of time so you have the opportunity to really develop a decent paper. I was always somebody that wanted to get my drafts done early so I'd have it out of the way, right? My brother, on the other hand, he was the 2 a.m. drafter where he's like, oh, I'll do it the night before. And I'm like, ah. So at least if you get an outline like this started, you won't get stuck in writing your paper. You won't start writing the paper and then feel like you're stuck or like, okay, well, I don't know where to go to from here. You'll have a foundation, right? So that's the goal. But that is the writing prep, right? I just want to know your overall topic, the purpose of it, and an outline, okay? And so going back to our module guide, I have this resource here, Why and How to Create a Useful Outline. So if you click on it, it's going to show you a little example of why you should use outlines and how it helps with it, right? So basically it's just telling you why it's useful, right? And so the idea is that you're going to brainstorm ideas, group them together, arrange them in order from specific to most abstract, and then create and organize it, right? It's going to eventually look like the example on the guidelines that I just showed you, okay? So obviously some of you may or may not have crafted outlines in a long time. If you have questions, please email me and just let me know. If you want me to check out your outline before it's due to make sure it looks okay, you can send me an email and say, hey, do you care to look at this real quick? And I don't care to look at it at all. I'll just be like, oh yeah, that looks fine, or no, you need to tweak it. I'm happy to give you that. I'm happy to give you that advice, all right? So if you have questions about your outline or you want me to double check it before you submit it, make sure to email me this week. Now, next weekend, I will be off the computer for quite a while. So if you have questions, make sure you email me and contact me this week because I will be offline next weekend for quite a bit. So, and things aren't due till Sunday, so don't wait until the last minute. Get your work done this week, and that way if you have questions, you can let me know, all right? But as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me. I'm happy to help answer them. But we do have a lot to do this week, so I'm going to leave y'all to it. So if you have questions, just let me know. But otherwise, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I will talk to you all very soon with Module 5 of English 122.